It's week 15 of the NFL regular season, and the 49ers have traveled to Western New York to play the Buffalo Bills. In the forecast, heavy lake effect snow, bringing rapidly deteriorating conditions to the game. Now to be clear, this game was never going to be canceled due to the snow. Canceling professional football due to the weather is simply not a part of the NFL's DNA. But lake effect snow is difficult to predict. These localized bands of precipitation bring heavy snow to one area, and in the next town over could have no impact. And in an open-air stadium like Highmark, where the Bills play, the weather can have a significant role in the outcome of the game. And this isn't just a consideration for teams visiting Buffalo, but across the league, where 20 out of the 30 NFL stadiums are open air. It's no surprise that weather impacts all parts of an athlete's performance. But for sports bettors, the impact of weather creates a unique opportunity. If you can understand the relationship between weather and football and act on it before the sportsbooks adjust, you might be able to capitalize on valuable odds and win big. Quick disclaimer, this video is not gambling advice. I'm someone who loves to talk about how weather impacts sports and found the economics of sports betting and the NFL to be so interesting. So once again, this video is for entertainment purposes and is not gambling advice. First, why do we care about how weather impacts football? The answer is simple. NFL games do not get canceled because of the weather. Compared to other sports leagues like the MLB or the NHL, the NFL actually has very few games. Each football team is guaranteed 17 games in the regular season, averaging out to just one game per week. Meanwhile, in the NHL, there are 82 games a season, and in the MLB, a staggering 162 games per season. Thus, NFL games are actually relatively rare, and the NFL knows that. Canceling a game is a huge loss to the $20 billion organization and the stadium hosting. But there's actually another reason why games don't get canceled, and it goes back to 1933. In 1933, the NFL created a standardized season schedule and implemented a key rule. If a team forfeits a game, the opponent will be declared the winner, eliminating a tie or draw in the case of inclement weather. And with only 17 games in a season, a forfeit would have huge implications for the playoffs. Since the implementation of that 1933 forfeit rule, only 2 games in the NFL have ever been canceled due to the weather. The 1935 matchup between Boston and Philadelphia, where rain and snow simply left the field unplayable, and the 1976 preseason matchup between the Steelers and the College All-Stars.
I don't think I've ever seen it rain this hard at a football game, Frank.
And the All-Stars game wasn't even technically canceled due to the weather. It was actually canceled because fans stormed the field and stole the field goal posts.
I have no idea what we're going to do.
And crazy weather games become some of the most memorable ones. Like the 1964 Mud Bowl between the Giants and the Cardinals.
The muddy melee continues into the fourth quarter as the Giants drive goalward through the slop. One reporter describes the field as too thick to drink and too thin to plow.
Or the 1967 Ice Bowl between the Cowboys and the Packers with a minus 48-degree wind chill.
Your thoughts here as we're moments away from the kickoff.
I think it's very cold, Ray.
And the 1988 Fog Bowl between the Eagles and the Bears.
The Eagles and the Bears are playing football, but I can't see, nor can anyone else. There are just shadows back there.
So if canceling a game due to adverse conditions is not an option in the NFL, we need to understand how weather impacts gameplay before we can understand the advantage of weather forecasting in sports betting. And this discussion starts with the weather at the team's home stadium. The NFL is made up of 32 teams across the United States, split into 2 leagues, the National Football Conference and the American Football Conference. During each regular season game, teams play 8 or 9 games at their home stadium. Out of the 32 teams playing at 30 unique stadiums, 22 of these teams have open-air stadiums. Further, each team can be classified into warm, cold, and dome weather teams. What's more interesting is that if we look at Super Bowl appearances sorted by a team's home climate, cold weather teams are overrepresented in Super Bowl appearances. Warm weather teams about average, and dome teams are grossly underrepresented in the Super Bowl, implying that cold weather teams perform better overall and dome teams are worse off. And some leading theories about the overrepresentation of cold weather teams are pretty obvious. If you're used to playing in the cold, wind, rain, or snow, moving to a warmer weather climate or the stability of a covered field will make your game perceptively easier. Though, regardless of whether a team is classified as cold, warm, or dome, teams need to be able to adapt their game for bad weather conditions. When there's rain, the football gets slippery, leading to more fumbles, turnovers, and wide receivers dropping the ball. When there's snow, teams are more likely to slip and slide. But the passing game actually benefits because the pace of play is actually slower. Or in heat, being more aware of aggression to minimize aggressive penalties against your team. Now, outside of precipitation and temperature, which can vary widely based on where you're playing, there's one consistent weather condition that most bettors should pay attention to: wind. Meteorologist Kevin Roth says that wind has the greatest impact on NFL games, impacting both the passing and kicking games, ultimately leading to a run-heavy game. So wind, precipitation, and temperature. How do each of these weather conditions create hidden opportunities in the NFL sports betting market? Well, first, the betting market is known as inefficient when the weather is abnormal. But to understand the concept of inefficiency in economics and why this applies to the NFL betting market, we need to understand what an efficient market is, and a key hypothesis known as the efficient market hypothesis. The efficient market hypothesis states that an asset price reflects all available information. If we have a stock A priced at $10 a share, and then a future merger is announced, investors can trade on this information, moving the price until the information is no longer useful for trading. It's important to note that in an efficient market, there is no way to beat the market. There are no arbitrage opportunities. There is no free lunch. And theoretically, the NFL betting market should operate as an efficient market. A team's performance, passing yards, rushing yards, injured players, field type, stadium type, are all public knowledge well ahead of the game. And weather predictions are too. However, in this paper by Richard Borghese from Texas State University, Borghese argues that the betting market does not accurately incorporate the effects of adverse weather conditions into totals bets prices. He suggests that the market for NFL totals bets is both statistically and economically inefficient. So to find the arbitrage opportunity, we need to understand this parameter, PR. Percent change or likelihood that betting over on a game will produce a win. In the calculation for PR, Borghese considers both the effect of weather on the total score and effect of weather on the offensive performance. And with respect to the total points scored in a game, a PR over 50% means we should bet over, and a PR below 50% means we should bet under. Most importantly, Borghese finds that when games are played in the hottest or windiest or rainiest conditions, the offensive performance suffers. And ultimately, it's in our best interest to bet under the total. But more importantly, Borghese argues that we only have high certainty in the weather a few hours before the kickoff. Therefore, bookmakers might not be able to change betting lines quickly enough to prevent bettors from seizing this opportunity. And Borghesi's argument for an inefficient betting market is further supported by this paper, published about a decade later in 2017 by Rodney Paul from Syracuse University. Rodney found that weather plays a huge role in total score, passing yards, rushing yards, and turnovers. Specifically for total score, if the humidity is over 75% during the game, taking the over total bet won 55% of the time. And on lower humidity days, defined as less than 55% humidity, taking the under won 55% of the time. Furthermore, combining high humidity with low wind speed and taking the over won 60% of the time. And this arbitrage opportunity exists in those few hours leading to kickoff, when the forecast is highly certain and bookmakers may not be paying attention to the impact on slight changes in weather during the game. So if we understand how changes in wind, humidity, and precipitation impact the speed and type of play, we can make a much more educated guess on the outcome of the game and the strategies a team might use. Now, there is a meta to this video. Because I've created a video to highlight information about a potential arbitrage opportunity in the NFL betting market, I'm attributing to making the market more efficient, thus eliminating the arbitrage opportunity. And if so, I'd be more than thrilled that enough people made it to this point in the video for me to have an impact on the NFL betting market. If you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy this one too.